We spent 10 days on vacation in Portugal during our son's high school winter break. We flew Lufthansa from Washington, D.C. to Frankfurt Airport and then to Porto Airport. The airfare was approximately $620 per person. Our Portugal trip, December 19th to December 29th. We had previously booked a Wi-Fi hotspot rental through portugalinternet.com, €50 for 10 days. It was to be picked up at the location in the airport lobby we were to arrive at, but it hadn't arrived. Panicked, we called the company, and they informed us that due to the Christmas season, there was a hold-up, and they would deliver it to our hotel the next day. Anxious of not having any internet, we were compelled to bring our hired car and utilize the navigation offered in the car to guide ourselves to the hotel. Things started creating some infinitesimal issues at this point. We booked a rental car in advance on discovercars.com and took advantage of the free airport shuttle to OK Rent a Car to pick it up. The rental cost €400 for 10 days, and we rented a Spanish Renault Kadjar. We drove to our hotel in Porto, the Holiday Inn Express Porto city center, with the car's navigation since we did not have internet. We needed to park at a location called Silo Auto, but since it was raining at night and the car's navigation was not very good, we were unable to locate it. The hotel itself was located in a small, confusing alley, so it was that much harder to find. After going around a couple of times, we finally found it. Without internet, it was like a nightmare day. The parking lot was around €13 per day and a 3-minute walk from the hotel. The hotel was clean, and the staff were friendly. We checked in late in the evening, and were tired and hungry. We went to a nearby restaurant at the front hotel and had an early dinner. I remember that it was home-cooked food and it was delicious. The Wi-Fi rental equipment was to be received at the hotel on our second day, but since we needed internet from the morning, we purchased an eSIM from a company called Arilo. It was finally worth it to avail an eSIM. The Wi-Fi rental unit was only delivered on the third day, and it infuriated me so much that I complained, sent it back, and was given a full refund. It was tense having something like that happen in a foreign country. Nowadays, we use eSIMs when traveling. This is the return envelope that I utilized to receive the full refund. On our second day in Porto, we headed directly to Livraria Lello, which is just 18 minutes away. It appears to be a local must-visit place in Porto. You will have to buy a €5 ticket on their website prior to entering, which allows entry at a specific time. The wooden carvings and the iconic red spiral staircase are well-known features. This bookstore also inspired J.K. Rowling while she was creating Harry Potter since she lived there for a while in Porto. If you buy an entry ticket, it is redeemable against the cost of a book. As you depart Livraria Lello, you will encounter the Catholic Church Igreja do Carmo, just a 2-minute walk. We strolled to Solar Moinho de Vento for lunch, just a 3-minute walk from Igreja do Carmo. We were fortunate to be able to have lunch without a reservation. The restaurant was very cozy, and the peaceful, warm local atmosphere was very satisfying. Additionally, the Christmas festive atmosphere also added a pleasant touch in the overall ambience. As it's a Portuguese restaurant, all the dishes we ordered were delicious and satisfying. It's a restaurant where you can be completely enveloped by the ambience and the service, rather than the taste of the food. After lunch, we took a walk to the Luísa Bridge, another of Porto's essentials, to facilitate digestion. We walked along the way to the Porto Cathedral as well. I took quite a bit of photography along the way to the Luísa Bridge. The area around the bridge is very unique. For my crossing, it was blustery and cloudy outside, and it terrified me so much. I still remember that my son was laughing uncontrollably because I was so scared that I could barely walk. The view from the bridge was breathtaking. We ended up taking loads of pictures while we crossed. We went back to the hotel for rest. Taking photos of buildings along the way, we continued walking in the narrow alleys. Walking around the narrow streets, we enjoyed seeing the old-look little shops and alleys. At night, we had dinner at Muro do Bacalhau, a restaurant near the Luísa Bridge. It is a bacalhau, Portuguese salted cod, specialist restaurant with a warm and elegant atmosphere. The food was mostly seafood, therefore light and delicious, and the local wine recommended was especially good. I particularly liked the refined atmosphere inside the restaurant. After dinner, we took a short stroll to enjoy the evening scenery near the bridge. We strolled back to the hotel and I took photos of the street lamps and shop fronts at night. That's how we concluded the second day of our stay in Porto. The following morning, we visited Mercado do Bolheio, which was only 5 minutes from the hotel. We had lunch at Taberna Dom Castro, a 15-minute walk from the hotel. The restaurant and the sign were so small that we wondered if it even was a restaurant. The old man who prepared warm homemade cuisine inside gave the establishment a whole local feel. The locals crowded there from the neighborhood. There was no menu, customers simply sat down and ate whatever the owner prepared on the day. Every course was homemade, wholesome, and cheap, coming in generous portion sizes. The unique atmosphere added to the curious experience. It is highly recommended. For our last night dinner in Porto, we ate at Tapabento Bento. We tried to reserve but it was full, so we had to go in on a walk-in once they opened up at 7 p.m. Since we had time still before 7 p.m., we went to Porto São Bento, which was at hand. We also walked by the church, Iglesia de San Antonio de los Congregados, and even visited McDonald's Imperial, just a 3-minute walk. Tapabento's Bento is a popular restaurant, and we could only get in after waiting outside early before 7 p.m. Since we didn't have a reservation, we were seated at the counter. The restaurant was packed. Everything we ordered, drinks and foods, was wonderful, and presentation was excellent. The nasi goreng, in particular, was prepared to perfection. This restaurant is popular for a reason, I highly recommend it. After enjoying a good last dinner in Porto, we returned to the hotel, had some drinks, and spent some family time together. The next day, we traveled to Lisbon. During the journey, we stopped at Coimbra, a city located approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes south of Porto. We made a stop at estacionamento, parking grounds, and crossed the bridge in the direction of the University of Coimbra. We first went to the tourism's ticket office and gift shop of the University of Coimbra to purchase the visit ticket to the Joanina Library. The Coimbra University has a great history, and it possesses some of the most beautiful buildings to behold. Tourists are invited in groups to the Joanina Library. As soon as you enter the library, you can feel the age and the history of the place. The elaborate and unique features of the library were great to behold. It was worth the trip. We subsequently proceeded to the city centre of Coimbra after departing the University of Coimbra. We had first wanted to have lunch at Zé Manuel dos Ossos, but it took too long, so we decided to dine at a different restaurant instead. We went to a Cozinha de Maria, which is a 2-minute walk from Zé Manuel dos Ossos. The meal that we ordered was just drool-worthy. The owner was very friendly, and he shared a lot about Portuguese cuisine with us. The local wine he recommended was amazing too. It was great to find such a great restaurant with such a great owner, and it made us have great memories of Coimbra. We drove 2 hours and 15 minutes south of Coimbra and arrived in Lisbon. We stayed for 2 nights at the Sheraton Lisboa, which was especially nostalgic since it was the same hotel we stayed at when our son was 8 years old during our previous visit to Lisbon. The first night in Lisbon, we dined at Maria Peixeira, which was a 10-minute walk from the hotel. We had most of our seafood in Portugal. The restaurant was welcoming, and the ambience was nice, but the taste was not as great as the food we had locally in Coimbra. The next day, we took an Uber and traveled 15 minutes to Pastéis de Belém. My son had visited when he was 8 years old, but he didn't remember it at all. It's so famous, so we certainly needed to visit. My son loved it so much that we ate a lot and even got some to go. It seems like he doesn't really remember trips that took place before he was 10 years old. We also took some photos at the monument to the discoveries, Belém Tower, and Geronimo's Monastery. We took an Uber to downtown Lisbon for lunch. We headed to Cutapal first. It's a Portuguese brand, and I did some shopping there. It's a bit expensive, but each piece is beautiful. As we strolled around the city, we took a few photographs of the Lisbon Cathedral and the Arco de Rua Augusta. We also took a few more photographs of central Lisbon, just like we did when we went there when my son was 8 years old. The restaurant we had originally planned to visit was closed, so we simply strolled around and ended up dining at an outdoor cafe in the street. It was a wise choice. In Portugal, you can't go wrong with any of the restaurants you choose. Our last evening in Lisbon, we bumped into a Portuguese friend near our hotel. I do not remember the name of the restaurant, but it was one our friend had recommended. We tried some typical Portuguese dishes we were not accustomed to, but they were delicious. Above all, it was wonderful spending time catching up with our friend after 9 years in Lisbon. After dinner, on our way back to the hotel, our friend took us to Galido, a relaxed, retro-style eating shop nearby. It was one of those joints where you could have food in a relaxed setting. Since it was Christmas season, we could spot traditional Portuguese cakes and food on the table. Our friend bought some treats for us to enjoy at the hotel. In addition, our friend gifted us some Portuguese gifts from a Vida Portuguesa, Lisbon, which was so thoughtful. We enjoyed the snacks she gave us on our last evening in Lisbon. We then took a 2.5-hour drive south to Vila Moura the next day. Porto is a tourist destination, and we had 3 nights there in the city. However, it was raining continuously, or the weather was overcast while we were there. Furthermore, there were numerous tourists, and the city appeared crowded with very narrow streets lined with small shops. For this reason, our family didn't have an enjoyable experience at Porto. Coimbra was quieter and smaller than we had expected, with fewer tourists, but we were pleasantly surprised to find some very good restaurants, so we finished with a good impression. It reminded me once again that we prefer quiet, small towns. Although we visited Lisbon frequently, so it was less exciting, my child enjoyed it more than Porto. It was nice to shop for products that are produced only in Portugal, and it was nice to be able to visit a friend there. If I were going to Porto and Lisbon, I believe that it would be nice to focus just on Lisbon and the surrounding towns.